Ukrainian forces say that the situation in the eastern city of Bakhmut is extremely tense as Russian troops step up their assault. They say Russia is trying to cut Ukrainian supply lines to the city and force them to surrender or withdraw. Now, the fiercely contested area has become a symbol of Ukrainian resistance.
Russia's relentless attacks on Bakhmut have reduced the city to rubble. There are few signs of life on the ground, and from above, the scale of the damage is overwhelming. Now Moscow has further intensified its shelling. Ukrainian soldiers are fighting back as hard as they can.
We are hitting them with whatever we have. We are holding on against their infantry. They are not sparing people. The whole area is filled with their dead bodies.
Russian troops have for months tried to capture the city, and both sides have suffered high casualties.
My medics work practically non-stop. Before the full-scale invasion, we had 50 to 60 wounded in a 9-month rotation. Now sometimes we have more than that in one day. There's a lot of work, but these soldiers are the best.
Bakhmut holds limited strategic importance, but taking it would be a major symbolic victory for Russia. Ukraine's president admitted things were not going well.
The situation is constantly becoming more difficult. The enemy is constantly destroying everything that can be used to protect our positions for fortification and defense. Our soldiers defending in the Bakhmut direction are real heroes.
As Russia ramps up its attacks, it could be on the verge of claiming the city, ending the longest battle so far of its invasion of Ukraine.
DW correspondent Nick Connolly joins us from Kyiv. So Nick, Ukraine has been sounding increasingly urgent about the situation in Bakhmut. Can you bring us up to date on the fighting there?
So we've just heard from one of Ukraine's top generals who said that the Russians are basically throwing everything they have at Bakhmut, including some of their best prepared units. This has been on the cards for some time now, but it does seem increasingly desperate for Ukraine's defenders of the city of Bakhmut. We understand, by some reports at least, there's only one remaining route in and out from Ukrainian-controlled territory. Up to recently, there were two, and there has been a lot of talk of getting out while it's still possible, avoiding being encircled. We understand the US has long been pressuring Kiev to get out. They think that basically the kind of cost-benefits analysis doesn't work out, that basically Ukraine can't do enough damage to Russian forces at reasonable price and cost to itself in terms of people on the ground and tech. So there is a sense that this could be the beginning of the end for Ukrainian-controlled Bakhmut for now, that there could be a withdrawal ahead. But it certainly has been, as you mentioned, a very symbolic city, something we've had Zelensky talking about time and time again, calling it a Ukrainian fortress, and it would be a blow in terms of kind of public opinion and the symbolism.
So what would it mean then if it were indeed to fall to the Russians, do you think, for both sides?
I think in terms of the actual strategic significance, it's less crucial. This is not a major transport hub. This is not a major administrative hub. Those cities in the Donbass region are still a couple of dozen kilometers further away and still more firmly in Ukrainian control. But certainly it would be something that the Kremlin would be very happy about indeed. After months of defeats, losing cities like Kherson, bits of Kharkiv region would be the first thing they could really sell their domestic audience as a success. But I don't think it would really change the course of the war. This is about symbolism we've seen time and time again, like last summer when Russia spent huge numbers of lives on gaining cities like Lysychansk in the Luhansk region, that Russia is all kind of focused on its own domestic opinion and has often kind of picked up some Pyrrhic victories at huge costs to its own forces in terms of lives lost.
Let's talk a little bit about Ukraine's partners. The United States, for example, U.S. Treasury Secretary was in Kyiv on Monday, President Biden in the country last week. What should we make of these visits now?
I think this is basically a lot more important than people have given it kind of credit for. Ukraine is basically about, by some estimates, half dependent for its budget on foreign money. So this is crucial to keep the country running. And it's also about making sanctions work and preventing Russia from building new weapons. So this is very important, but very scarce on detail in terms of things that were announced to the public. But certainly a visit that was waited for a long time in Kiev. And that is, very important in terms of allowing Ukraine to keep fighting in a place like Bakhmut.
Nick Connolly in Kyiv, thank you. As the war grinds on, the casualty numbers are mounting on both sides. Tens of thousands of soldiers have died, with some estimates putting that number much higher. In our next report, we meet an Orthodox priest who has been laying Ukrainian soldiers to rest every day.
This is Father Taras Mishaishuk, a military chaplain preparing for his daily duty at a Lviv cathedral. And these are Ukrainian soldiers carrying their fallen comrades. Their loved ones have turned out, their fellow fighters too, to say goodbye. The steady stream of funerals have taken a toll.
For me personally, the distance between earthly life and eternal life has shrunk to the bare minimum, because quite often I have to realize that we are really saying goodbye and praying to the defenders of Ukraine who died defending our motherland.
It's time to take the fallen to their final resting place. An emotional last journey, and just one of many for Father Taras.
I think I can't give you a clear number, but it can all be seen at the cemetery. Obviously, we're talking about hundreds of funerals. It sometimes happens that we bury several of our heroes before lunch, and then after lunch. There could be 5 falling in a day, to whom we said goodbye.
The final moments above ground, before the earth swallows them up. Amid so much grief, Father Taras says his job is also to keep up morale.
It's not easy psychologically, but for now we are holding on, not just giving up and praying.
One last goodbye, and then Father Taras must ready himself to bury more soldiers.